Alright guys, so now we're into our second episode of this podcast where we talk to celebrities, sportsmen and get their views and ideas to what's happening in the present time. And today I am honored to be having this special guest, and he's the heart of BFC. He commands the midfield of BFC. He's an Australian international. He's a Super Cup winner with BFC. He's won the A-League twice in Australia with Brisbane Roars. And he's the most travelled footballer in the squad for BFC. He's known as the Big E by the BFC fans. And he's none other than Mr. Erik Paartalu. How are you?
Hi, mate.
Nice to have you.
Yeah, cheers.
Please.
Thank you.
Been quite some time to get this up and running.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Same. The first thing, congrats on BFC qualifying, and nice to see that it's the first team to qualify in the ISL. And first thing, everybody's asking me, please tell them about your injury and when can we have you back on the field?
Yeah, it's a difficult one to talk about, obviously, with medical diagnosis and with the physio and the doctors all having their own sort of say and input. I think it was a pretty serious injury because at the time it looked like it could have been the ACL, which we were really worried about, which would have meant 12 months out of the game, which was something I didn't want to face at this stage of my career. So the early prognosis is good. It looks as though it's going to be a couple of weeks. Whether or not I can get back in full fitness for the finals, that's another question. This week's a major week because I'm meeting with a few doctors and a few surgeons and obviously the physios and things to see where we're at, because with any injury, the first week is a lot of swelling, a lot of blood around. So we're looking as though after Thursday or Friday we'll know a little bit more information. But in my head, I'm still planning to be there in the finals at the end. But for the team, it's difficult as well because they have to then plan ahead, because you can even see last night, they tinkered with the formation quite a lot, because when I think a player that is quite central like myself comes out, it's very difficult to
replace him with something.
So Thursday or Friday we'll know a little bit more.
Hope to see you back for the cup game at least, or the final, because you run the midfield, you're the heart, to be honest, and a lot of BFC fans are waiting for this. So let me start off firstly with you broke into the scene in 2003, the under-17 Australian team that won the OFC championship. So if you could just take us through as to, it's early, at such a young age, playing for Australia, and it's a dream for anyone. So how was it for you? And you played against teams like New Zealand and Solomon Islands and all that, and Australia being the highest title. Australia's won many titles in this, 10 titles over New Zealand. So how was it for you?
Amazing experience, because growing up you want to become a professional footballer, but I think at the same time when you're a kid you don't expect it to happen so quickly when you get to that age. I was very lucky that in my career that I had some really good coaches, some great guidance, and obviously great support network at home with my parents and family to get me to that point in the Australian team, because it's not easy to get to that point. My whole youth career I was a type of player that wasn't technically or physically gifted. I had to work so hard to get what I have now, just by reading the game, working harder than everyone else, and focusing on my fitness and technique and attitude. I think attitude got me into a lot of teams and kept me in a lot of teams.
Are you saying that you didn't have any kind of talent, or did you build it from the start, or did you build on something that you already have?
No, I think as a kid, I was always running around and keeping fit, and I was very, very fit, long distance runner, champion of my state in Australia, and there's a lot of things that led to being a footballer. I was good at basketball.
6'4".
Yeah, so I didn't actually get tall until I was about 15, but when I did grow, it helped me a lot. So I guess it was kind of getting to that point, and if we go to the under-17s Australian team, it was a big time in my career because you're playing on the international stage. We won the Oceania Championship, which is not really that highly regarded in the world of football. For a young lad to win something for your country, it was like fantastic.
Yeah, but still playing for your country and winning something for your country at that age is still commendable.
Yeah, and we played New Caledonia, which I don't know if you know too much about. It's a beautiful island in paradise, and as a kid it's like 16, 17, going to this amazing hotel and on the beaches, white sand, blue water, and I ended up scoring in the final of that. I think we won over 2 legs. We won about 5 or 6 to 2 over the 2 legs. We were dominant. But then when we went to the World Cup in 2003, we had Nigeria, Costa Rica, and Argentina. And to be honest, tough teams. Yeah. And you can see with India, at that level, even at under 17 level, when you get a South American team or you get any team that's higher ranked than you, it's
technically sound players as well. The whole team comes into a shape, so it's pretty hard.
Yeah, absolutely. But that was a great honour for me to represent my country, and I was lucky enough to do it as a senior about 10 years later as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Now getting into just after that, you debuted in Northern Spirit. That was your first club that you got into, and post that you moved from there to Scotland, which was Doncaster Rovers. Why that move suddenly from Australia to Scotland?
So very similar to what the I-League and the ISL are going through now. In around about 2003, there was a transition from the old National Soccer League, it was called. Oh yeah. It took 18 months to basically wipe everybody out and create a new competition, which is now the A-League. Yeah. So a lot of teams that were there were disbanded, and they went from having 16, 17 teams to having 10. Actually, the first season was only 8 teams, so they went 1 team in each city, and now we have 10, but they were going to expand to 12 now. So for me, I was 17 and I got a chance to play at the top level in Australia at that time, and I was around the first team quite a lot. Only managed to get off the bench for about 10 minutes, but it was an amazing experience, and I thought my career was going to go that.
But how hard is it to break into the first team there? How's the competition there?
Difficult. From a physical point of view, first and foremost, the boys and they're men, and you're still a boy. That's as simple as that. I think being a bigger guy helped me being able to, to ride tackles or make a tackle. Yeah. I was never a quick player, so I've always struggled with my speed. That's probably why I am, the player I am in that position, because you don't have to be that quick. You have to be quick in the mind. And my long legs kind of helped me to get to things. So I'm going off subject. So basically, from Northern Spirit, I went overseas and trialled every 6 months in England. Okay. So it started off, I was with Leeds, Cardiff, Swansea, Watford. I went to Doncaster in the end. Yeah. But over that 3-year period between 17 and 20, I was travelling back and forth, thinking I was going to have a contract here, have a chance here. And to be quite honest, I was very good for my age, 17 or 18. I would have made into their teams no problem. But when you're playing at Watford and you've got guys like, Ashley Young, Ben Foster, training with you, you're on a different level. Yeah. They're on a different level to you. So
back then, Ashley Young was a winger.
He was, and at Watford, and there's a lot of players that I sort of train with that I was very lucky to, but you can just tell that having that upbringing in Europe and obviously a little bit more athleticism definitely helped them. But they were already pros at 16, 17, whereas I was trying to be a pro at 18, 19, a bit late.
But what was the difference between England and Australia? The gameplay, or how's the mentality, or how's it?
Yeah, mentality. They're brutal over there. I think it's dog eat dog, and it's not a nice environment as you would say. But that's the top level of football. These guys are there to take somebody's position, and if you turn up as a trialist in the dressing room, it's like who's this guy that's come here to take my position, and they'll kick the crap out of you because they know that that's my job, and you're not taking my job. So I learned a lot of things about myself in those 2 or 3 years. But from there, I ended up going to Doncaster Rovers on trial, did really well. Long story short, it fell through that the manager moved on and the new one came in, and then I moved to Scotland. So I got an opportunity to go to Gretna.
That's where you played for 2.5 years, and you won the Scottish League as well.
So we won the Scottish First Division, which was an amazing achievement. My first year as a pro at 19 or 20, playing a big part in that, and getting promoted to the Premier League was pretty special. It was a really good year. Things didn't pan out so well after that. The owner actually passed away and took all his money out before, and the club went into financial administration, and that's when I made the move to the other club, Greenock Morton, which was in the First Division, the Premier League in the First Division. And I had 2 years there, and that's how I met my wife, and I learned a lot more about myself. Played in the 4 years I was in Scotland, I played over 120 games, so it was for a young guy I was in.
Actually, it's over 40 goals and over 330 games presently for you.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that.
Oh, okay.
It's a stat that I'm proud of, especially as a defensive midfielder. There's a lot of guys that play my position and don't score goals. If I look back on my career, I would have loved to have, maybe stayed in the one place more than I have, but also with opportunity in Asia, the way it is now, you're tempted to move around because it's better money than what it is back home, and obviously it's only a short career. So, but for now, I'm happy.
Was moving from Australia to Scotland, was the weather also a part of it? Because obviously Scotland's really cold. Did it affect you in any way? Or even the gameplay, for example, from England to Scotland, every team has their own thing. So you gelled pretty well, you got into the groove. Was it hard for you? Was it something that came into you naturally?
No, definitely not naturally. I think having gone back and forth over the 2 or 3 years really helped me, because I kind of got an understanding of what the weather was like, what the people were like, what the expectation was like, how literally having one bad session means that you're not going to get a contract because who's this trialist, he's not good enough. So mentally I was a lot stronger going into there. But when I went to Scotland, you have to adapt. You have to adapt to the pace of the game, what they want from you in the games. The pace is so fast.
Faster than Australian?
Yeah, because the weather, it's just so cold that you can run and exert yourself for 90 minutes and then do it 2 days later, no problem. It's like, and obviously I was a lot younger there, so it felt very easy. But then there was all the things off the field. You had to, bond with the boys. So there's a big drinking culture back then. So boys were out drinking Saturday and Tuesday. We'd play Saturday at 3 o'clock, and everyone would be in the pub all night drinking.
It's a culture thing.
It's a culture. And then the thing was, for me as a young lad, you get carried away with that because you're thinking this is normal, everyone else is doing it, this is great, we're winning. But then actually it wasn't the best thing for my career, and actually I found the more that I thought about myself and did the right recovery and did extra sessions during the week towards the end of my time in Scotland, that's why I went to, I think, another level going back home to Australia.
So the takeaway from this is we'll keep working, keep focused.
I think people get in the trap, particularly here, even in India. I've seen players that have more Instagram posts than they have minutes on the pitch, and I understand it. But if they're serious about being a professional footballer, then they have to be working harder than the next guy. If you get one opportunity, that means you have to work even harder to get the next one, because things aren't given to you in football. You have to work.
I remember someone saying that every goal that you score, celebrate it like it's your last, because you never know.
Pretty much, and the same can be said about playing. Even with an injury now, it's like, I was thinking on the way here, it's like every step that I make now on the football pitch this season will be like a blessing, and I'll be so grateful to have that, even just a step. So when I was breaking down games in my head, it's like every play, everything you have to be focused on. But for me, it's like every step now I have to focus on. So it's you have to take, you can't take for granted.
That's true.
Post that, you headed back to your country and you signed with Brisbane Roars. You became the go-to man, and you scored crucial goals.
Yeah.
One of those crucial goals, which my team was showing me the clip, you guys are playing the A-League final and you're losing 2-0.
Yeah.
You come back 2-1 in the extra time first half and you score in the last touch of the game and 120th minute for your club.
Yeah.
And I mean, what was going through your mind? Because I saw that goal,
Yeah.
everyone was charging in, you make your way through, and that was like at the center of the goal.
Yeah.
And you score that. Like, what was going through your head? And it was electrifying. I was just
The best team in the A-League era. And it goes. 2-2! Unbelievable! Erik Paartalu, and they pulled it out of the fire right at...
Well, I got goosebumps now you're talking about it because it means, yeah, it literally means so much to me because, you know, after the final, a couple of days later, I sat down with everybody and I said, I'm probably not going to be able to top this in my career. And like it was almost not a relief, but it was kind of like, how am I going to get to a stage in my career where I feel that way again? Because the emotion was just incredible. I mean, we had dominated that league all year, and we were 2-0 down. Second half of extra time, we scored in the 115th minute,
Yeah.
and then I scored in like the 119th, like the last touch.
Yeah, that was the last touch. Yeah.
And there were so many things leading up to that point that we had done so well, and nothing in football is deserved. You don't deserve to win because you've been so good, like us last year.
Yeah. That is heartbreaking.
I just remember the ball. I remember this.
It was a cross.
Yeah, Thomas Broich, the German international, fantastic player, went over to get the ball, and he was actually over there quite quickly. And the Mariners defenders didn't set up very fast. And I was kind of on the edge of the box, still sort of running in, and I thought, no one's picking me up here. If this is a good ball, I'm gonna score. I know I'm gonna get on the end because I have that confidence with my head.
because they're overloading the box. I saw a lot of because the last minute,
The ball was just an incredible cross,
Beautiful cross. Yeah.
and people don't often talk about it, but that made it for me because it was literally the ball was at a certain height where I could run and check and get in front of someone. And all I needed to just do was just touch it, and I knew it would go because it was wet. It had rained a lot in the second half. It poured down. I think about it, because if I would have headed it towards that way, I may not have scored, because I sort of headed there and it skidded off my head and went in the far post. It was a good header, but it was also lucky because on a wet day anything could have happened.
It did even take a bobble. It did pitch, I feel.
No, so the guy on the line, it was literally, he was here and the ball was there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even if he would have jumped, he would have got there, but it happened so quick. The connection was just so fast, and then you run off and you're numb in your body. It's just like that. The crowd there was the biggest crowd for football at that time, and they still have a recording of when I scored, and it's the loudest decibel level that stadium's ever had, and it's the best stadium in Australia when I scored. So actually now they have a sound bar on the back of their jerseys to represent the goal that I scored. So it's very much etched in my career, and something I'm.
I could feel the intensity and the energy coming out of the clip which I saw.
Yeah.
That was incredible. Like, man, there are a lot of youngsters always imagine themselves scoring a goal like this, but
Yeah. I think at that age too, I was 23, 24, and it just really set me up for what was to be a pretty good career, because even before that I had offers to go overseas, back to Asia and places like that, but we had a great team, had a great coach and a great philosophy, and it all seemed to click in that game.
So you won the A-League twice, you won the Premiership, you also won the solo goal of the season.
That's right.
That was a volley, cracker of a volley. I saw that. I mean, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
That came in from the left side, left wing.
And actually the same guy that provided the assist in the grand final. That actually happened a couple of weeks before the final, that goal, and we were so far in front, but that goal and that game gave us the premiership. And if you watch the clip, again Thomas Broich, the German international, it was like he had a second nature of where everyone was on the pitch. Like, he was running towards the byline, and he almost like 180'd his body so fast as he was running the ball, and then just passed it back there on the volley, and he knew I was running through.
You were running into the box, I remember. It was at the edge of the D.
Yeah, I was on the edge of the box, and it was at a good height for my left foot, and I think when it's on your weaker foot, you tend to control.
That's what I want to ask. It was on your weaker foot, and that was a cracker, man. What a shot.
So I think a lot of my goals on my weaker foot tend to be decent ones, because you don't think about hitting it so hard, you think about just the technique and
connection and the way you get it.
Yeah, I mean, that year was just a special year in the whole club, because like I said, the coach and the philosophy, and we had so many awards that year. I think, you know, eight players got in the best 11 of the season for the Professional Footballers Association. We had the goalkeeper of the year, we had, you know, I think the top scorer, we had the goal of the year. And over the 2 years, we set an Australian record of 36 games unbeaten in that team.
Yeah, and you started all the games.
So
in the AFC and.
So I still hold that record. I think I played 85 games consecutively over the 2.5 years. But I also, it was like, I think 79 A-League games. But I would have kept playing, but I moved.
Yeah, then you moved to China, and then you went to a Thai club for a while. Correct. And then you got a lucrative offer from Newcastle Jets, which you turned down, and you picked Melbourne City. Why that?
Well, to be quite honest, if we go back to China, it was a great experience. Had signed a long-term deal, played every game, did well, and then after a season into my 3-year deal, they wanted to move me on, because that's the way it works in Asia. I think people understand when I talk about Chinese football how it works. And then Thailand was great for a time, and then a change of management, and I had the offer to go home, and I didn't see that sort of going anywhere in Thailand. I was ready to come back. Newcastle, to be quite honest, they only offered a 2-year deal, whereas Melbourne offered a 4-year deal, and obviously the money was one factor, but in Australia,
they offered you more than.
From recollection, I think they offered roughly the same, but it was more the term.
Okay.
It was more and also Manchester City, the City Group had just taken over Melbourne Heart,
City.
so they made it Melbourne City. So there was a more of a help us build for the future, and also you're going to be connected with this great club, and it's not just going to be, you know, you playing for any other A-League club. And
the jersey does give you a feel that you're watching City.
And, you know, I had a chance to captain Melbourne City against Manchester City in a pre-season friendly, and it was, you know, against Vincent Kompany, Joe Hart's in goal.
Is he like a proper defender to beat?
Yeah, no, he's a lad's lad. Like he's a great captain. You know, the boys will respond to him on and off the pitch. But you know, we were in the same hotel on a number of occasions in pre-season or in the middle of the season. You know, guys like Frank Lampard, Raheem Sterling walking down the hallway, Aguero. Like, it's just.
Did you get a chance to speak to them?
Yeah, we spoke to them because they were in the same lift as us, and like all walking around, and Yaya Toure and playing against these guys. So like it was a massive experience. Like I could name more players, but it's that was the reason why I chose to go to Melbourne City. And you know, the first 4 games of the first season I was there, we played with David Villa. David Villa came and played with us for 4 games, and it was like. Because he was at New York City, and he came on loan because the season hadn't started yet, and it was a whirlwind experience. They really looked after you there as a club, and they still have the best club in Australia, I believe, in terms of infrastructure, training ground, facility. Everything's in place, but they don't have a culture, and they don't have a soul, and they don't really have a philosophy or a philosopher. In terms of a coach that's been there and gone, this is the way we're playing, and we're going to get results. And they've been a bit unlucky. They finished in the top 3 or 4 every year, but they're never going to win the title unless that changes.
So,
did you learn anything? What do you learn from all these top players when you meet them? Is there something, one particular thing that is similar to all these players that you have taken imbibed in yourself?
I think, obviously, they've worked so hard to get where they are. But there's almost a sense of frustration when you are around these type of players. Not the top players at Man City because they're on a different planet. Yeah. But you know, you can relate to some of the boys in the youth team or You know, some of the guys that we're playing against in pre-season, you kind of like, you're not that far away, and you know that the opportunity that they have compared to you, that's just football. I mean, you see it in the ISL with the salary of, let's say, Miku and a youth team player.
It's most expensive player.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing is, you know, money comes and goes in football. If you're lucky enough to stick around in your career the whole time, it's you know, it comes and goes with the territory. But you know, when you're talking about these guys, they probably earn what you do in a season, in a week. So it's difficult to sometimes go, am I doing anything? And you're actually probably working harder than these guys. But they are there for a reason. And I think getting an opportunity when you're young, taking advantage of that opportunity when you're young, and just having great guidance and great coaching early is so key, because you can be the most talented footballer, but not have any coaching, and you know, you'll find yourself eventually in a situation when you're playing in the first team and not have an idea of what you.
That sets you up perfectly for your future, you're trying. And I saw this as well, the clip in the derby, which you played again, Melbourne Victories, if I'm right. You scored again in the 90th minute, which was like nuts. The stadium went crazy, and scoring a goal at the last minute in a derby is like insane. Again, you have a knack for something like this, or you pop up at the right time at the right place?
And it's victory on the front foot, or City, I should say. Recycled by Kisnorbo, back in by Dugandzic, and there's Paartalu to win the derby for City! Erik Paartalu, as we move into stoppage time!
Yeah, no, I've done it a lot of times in my career. I think it's just something that goes through my head about, and not wanting to lose. Usually in a game of football, if you're losing a game, a person in my position, the coach might think to substitute you and put a striker on to try and go for the game or something like that. So there's almost an urge to show, no, keep me on, I can do something. But the times that I have scored late goals, that was a really important time for us as a club at Melbourne City, because before that, Melbourne Victory was so dominant. They beat us, I think, 5-2 the game before, in the derby at the start of the season, and before that they were always beating the club, and that was kind of the first step to say, hey, the new boys are in town and we're stronger than you. We're actually going into another Melbourne derby this week, and you can tell, although Victory still have a very good framework, the same coach, the same ideals, Melbourne City are slowly taking over as the number one club, but Victory are so good in their fan base because they've won championships, and Melbourne City haven't won a championship yet, so therefore people are more inclined to stick with a successful team, you know, in Australia.
So post that wonderful season, would you call that as a peak for your career at that moment, or?
It was difficult to say when I might be my peak now. No, I think not with an injury, but in football things happen at the right times and the wrong times. When I was playing in Brisbane, I felt at that time that could have been an opportunity to get to a really good club and go places and play in the national team week in, week out. At the time, the coach didn't want to pick players from the A-League, and he ended up, because he had a lot to choose from overseas and a lot of older players. We call it the golden generation, and there's no disrespect there because they were excellent players and they deserved their position. But now, even the last 4 or 5 years, the coaches that have been there, who was actually my old coach at Brisbane, gave a lot of young guys chances, and it's made their careers go like that over in Europe or in Asia. So when I was playing in China, when I was playing in Australia for Brisbane, I got a chance to be in the squads of the national team, but never took part on the field. I was always on the bench, and then when I went to China, I'd been playing for 18 months straight without a break, every weekend playing, because I went from Australia to China, and I've done that 3 times in my career, have 18 months straight, and I was a bit tired, and we went into a tournament in South Korea, and I played 2 games, one against South Korea, one against China. And in the China game, I didn't do myself justice. I didn't have a good game. I was flat. The team was just a bunch of guys just thrown together at the last minute because
nothing.
And I didn't play well, and I knew from that point on that if I was going to stay in China, then I'm probably not going to play in the Australian squad. So that kind of pushed me also when I eventually went to Thailand and places like that. I was like, well, the best thing for me to do is go back to a place where I've got a better level and we'll start again. And there was an opportunity possibly when I was doing so well at Melbourne to get a chance again. But then I went to South Korea.
Yeah, talking about that, after all your highs, then we come to one of your, say, the low times that you had in your career where you went to South Korea. And I mean, you were asked to train separately or alone. Why all of a sudden? Because you were a part of the squad, and then he asked you to move out, and he said the tempo was the issue, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, that was the issue. Yeah. So first and foremost, you have to remember in South Korea there's a completely different culture of living, working environment, playing football, and I don't think that the coach respected anyone on the same level. That's the way South Korea operates. If you go through the South Korean top league and the second league, there's only one club in the whole of the 20 or 30 teams they have that's a foreigner. They're all Korean, and it's because that's the only way that they want to operate. And
is it because they want to give opportunities for their own people, or they didn't believe in a foreign player coming and influencing the team?
Talk about coaches now. So the coaches are the only one foreign coach. They don't want to have anyone else leave because they don't know how to function any other way, or they don't want to change. So for me, it was the most lucrative contract of my career, and that's why I left Melbourne City in the end, because it was a really good opportunity. I mean, I had another 2.5 years on my deal in Melbourne, comfortable, but I don't like being comfortable. So I was like, you know what, this is the best club in Asia. It's paying a lot of money, let's go. And I started the first 4 Champions League games, did okay. And then there was one game, we went and played in Vietnam. And my hands were down on a corner and a guy hit my arm and it was given as a penalty. And we went 1-0 down, and then 2-0 down. He took me off at half time. After half time, we had 2 red cards and we lost the game 3-2. So when we came back to Korea, it was just like, okay, go and train with the second team. And I was like, okay, this is kind of strange. I've been with you for like 3 months now and I'm doing well. I don't understand. A week or 2 had passed and I'd asked other coaches, can I speak to the manager, ask him what do I have to do to get back in the team? Normal things. And eventually it took me about 4 or 5 weeks to get a meeting with the coach, and I still have the recordings on my phone, and it was basically along the lines of, you're being disrespectful, coming to me and asking, you know, all these different things of why you're playing, why you're not playing. You're a footballer, just shut your mouth, get paid and turn up to training. And I just said, okay, but I want to know how I get myself back in the team. And I thought you liked me, you told me you liked me, you signed me. And then he goes, oh, I'm really disappointed. I don't appreciate you speaking to me like this, even calling me into this meeting. And he got up and he walked out twice. He went out, came back in, started talking. He put it on an act, basically. And
he just wanted you out of the club.
Yeah, and then because I was speaking to him like a normal human being, and he was just, I think, threatened. So after that, it was probably the wrong thing to do, but I'll never not stand up for myself or for anything. But
you have the right to know. You need to know what's happening with you and your career and where you're going. So
it happens too often in South Korea, unfortunately, and one of my good friends is going through it right now, playing in South Korea, and it's a real problem over there. And basically, long story short, for the next 5 months, I trained twice a day alone, and they made me run. Certain times it was like you have to run here and be in there in a certain time. And run in the afternoon, and all the while I'm trying to send FIFA letters, and FIFA lawyers are getting involved, and because they kept paying my salary every month, they couldn't do anything. So they were trying to force me out, and they told me you can leave and find another club.
You had to put down the papers by yourself. They're not going to.
No. And then one day it was like 40 degrees, and I'd been doing running and I had to go to hospital one day because I was like faint on the way home in the car. And after that, they kind of laid back a little bit, but then it was a really extreme situation, and one I'm so proud that I got through, probably more than scoring a winning goal or having a good season, was that moment of not giving up, because in times in your life, there's moments like that you get that show what type of character you are. And
Shape you up.
even with the amount of money that I could have earned by staying longer, or the fact that that club went on to win the Asian Champions League that year, and I could have been a part of that. I left all that behind to go to the Middle East, to Qatar, and that was another step in the wrong direction. So for that year, it really hurt my career. Yeah,
that was a very, maybe you can say, a little low period for you.
Yeah,
a lot of things were going wrong, but then you kept strong and you kept moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing in football. Life's not fair.
Yeah, that's true.
Football's certainly not fair. On a week-to-week basis, you're playing a sport and a job that your feelings are dictated on a result, and sometimes that result's out of your control because of this, that, or the other. And I'm old enough now to realise that I don't get too down about it, especially even with an injury. It's like, man, last year I played with broken ribs twice. I had surgery on my toe. I have this now, so nothing's going to stop me from reaching what I want to do.
Because talking about this, you played like you said 86 odd games for Brisbane. So you were like at your peak with fitness. Like, it's not that easy to play week in and week out, and yeah, that was incredible.
Yeah, I think you at that time you always never thought about it. It was just like, I'm coming. And in my career, I've touched wood, I've not had anything serious that's kept me out. Like, I've never had a real muscle issue. This injury was because I tried to tackle someone and I popped my knee in a different direction, so I was unlucky. But I look after myself, and I think that's the message to the younger kids as well, is if it's one thing being a footballer or one thing being an athlete, but if you don't do the right things off the pitch, if you're not doing your strength at home in the gym, if you're not eating properly, if you're going out and drinking all the time and partying with your friends, then you're going to be behind.
This is what keeps you going. Your body, that's amazing. Yeah. So after that, the big thing, BFC comes knocking, and then you land at the Bangalore airport. You didn't expect something, which I read recently, that you didn't expect the fans to be there post midnight.
Yeah.
It was something that took you aback.
It did. And I was ready to come to BFC because I'd spent 5 months or 6 months as a free agent, and that was a very difficult time in my life. Having gone through what I'd been through already, to come to that point.
Take a decision on
and
BFC.
yeah, because I had offers to go to places, but just nothing that really was worthwhile, or it was just short term. Yeah, I was ready to come because it was, such a difficult period of my life, being told by agents, by other people, you're going to come here, I've got you a contract there. But it was a really difficult time.
Why
so
didn't you choose BFC though?
Well, when it came, I was just really ready to sink my teeth into something. It wasn't like I had offers to go back home. I had offers to go and play in Malaysia or the Philippines or maybe somewhere in China, second division. But I was like, I've done a little bit of that before, and I know what the outcome is. You go to those Southeast Asian countries and they don't treat you properly sometimes. Well, a lot of the times Australian players, they don't get treated properly in our experience. And being in Australia again, I was like, dude, I really want to go back there and do what I've already done. So when BFC came knocking, it was a really interesting project because I was like, I knew Cameron Watson, who had played this season before me here. And actually a really funny story that when I was playing in Qatar, BFC were playing in the final of the AFC Cup. And that was in Doha as well. So I was sitting in Doha and I'd been texting Cameron, and I knew him. We didn't get the chance to meet because he was so busy preparing. But the day after the game, I'm sitting in a hotel in the pool, and this guy walks past, and I had this polo shirt on, and I was kind of like, pretty sure that guy looks like a footballer. And it ended up being John Johnson walking past.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, Amy's like, I'll look him up. I looked him up on the internet. I was like, yeah, he plays for BFC. He plays, and he must be English because we heard the parents and the girlfriend that were there at the time. And it was John Johnson, and fast forward 6 months, he's my roommate. It was surreal. So it was kind of meant to be. So we go back to the airport. When I arrived, it was like I knew I'd made the right decision because I knew I was joining a club that the infrastructure was good. They were hungry for titles. They were doing things the right way. Because a lot of teams in India were still doing things the wrong way, and they still are in the ISL.
And they're coming off a couple of victories, a couple of titles with them.
Yeah. And it was exciting. It was new. India, wow, what an experience that will be, just as a life experience. And we haven't looked back, mate, because as I said, when I arrived at the airport and just felt the love from the fans and everybody, and and I'd obviously spoken to the coach on the phone beforehand, so I knew what I was getting myself into, what he expected from me straight away.
It's much clear for you.
It was clear, so I wasn't going to come and make another mistake in terms of joining someone without speaking with a coach or understanding the culture, and it's just been a really good match.
And 2017 is when you came in. 2018 you played the Super Cup final against East Bengal. You almost saved BFC off the line, I remember.
Yeah.
But that was unfortunately a goal. It was 1-1 in the first half. You guys had more possession though.
Yeah. So it was difficult for us because in the ISL we were so dominant, and as I said before, in football no one deserves anything. It's everything on 90 minutes. You can see in every game of football it's so even. So we got to the Super Cup and we were all very hungry to try and win a trophy for the club, and playing in Bhubaneswar in the heat, 40 degrees, playing at 4 p.m. It was difficult. It was not easy for us, and I think we had a little bit of a hangover from the ISL because it seemed like in every game we played, we copped a goal early and had to come back. So
that was the season which we lost as well.
Yeah. So we literally were trying, I think I was playing at the back at the time. He's playing a back five. I tried to get the one off the line, and as I said before, if you're losing a game of football in my position, you come off. So even in the final, I think I came off at like 65, 75 minutes or something. And to be fair, when he made the substitution, it changed the game and we won the cup, and the rest is history.
Second half you were running riot. Miku and Chetri had a brace and Miku scored.
Yeah.
Funny, talking about Miku, he missed, say, most part of the season, and you guys, without one of your main players, made it through to the top. You played pretty well. You beat a lot of teams and qualified. So how hard was it for you?
Really difficult at that point in time because Miku is obviously a very, very important player for us, and if you take out any of these players in an ISL franchise, your goal scorer no less, you struggle. And I think for the 8 games he played, we managed to win something like 5 and 2 draws and a loss or something, so it was really good. And guys like Raul Beke, Udanta, myself, all stepped up on the score sheet, and we were quite lucky to get through that period. But now we find ourselves in a pretty tricky situation.
Yeah. Udanta, lightning fast. Is he one of the fastest players you've seen?
Yeah. You grow up with players you've played with or played against that are lightning fast, and everyone always talks about his decision making, and I think it's a little bit unfair on him because when you're that fast, you arrive to things that are not normal. They're not normal speed. Maybe the ball is slower. Maybe the ball is actually slower than yourself. So I think what he has in his locker is his combination and his connection with Sunil. When he makes that run, he knows Sunil will be running in the box, and he just has to put a good ball in, and Sunil will score. We've seen it so many times, but Udanta for me is a prime example of had Udanta would have had fantastic coaching as a young kid. I'm talking from the age of 6, 7, 8, through an academy in Europe or through an academy in India that's got a platform. This guy will be playing at the top level for sure because he's got all the attributes. That's what he's playing. Yeah.
Talking about Chetri, captain of the Indian team, captain of BFC, how is he as a captain to play under, and how does he work with his team? How does he set his team up before a game? How's he in the dressing room?
No, what I like about Sunil is that he's just very, very humble. I mean, off the pitch, he's the type of guy that, he's stopped so many times for photos, autographs, and he never has a bad word to say about anyone. He just gets on with his job, understands that's his role now. As a captain and as a leader, he's great at switching the mentality of players because the young players really look up to him. I'll give you an example. Like the last 12 months of his career, he's really changed his diet. He's become vegan, but there was a slow transition to become a vegan, which I think he thinks is going to help his game. So he's trying to take his game to the next level.
To be honest?
Well, I don't know. I'm not vegan, but I think for him, maybe mentally it makes him, sharper. But what I do like about that is that from him making a change, all the young players are making changes with their diets as well. So going to the hotel, for example, if we have pasta or rice, they won't eat that now. They'll have quinoa. So there's a complete following and transition for Sunil. Before the game, he's great at changing a mood and being upbeat, being focused, but then all of a sudden heads on the job and I'll show you the way, follow me. It's kind of like that.
Is he very talkative or is he to himself?
No, he's not very talkative in terms of, he's engaged with everyone before the game, he's ready, he's talking, but he's very much focused on his own preparation. But then when it comes 5 minutes before we have to go out or 5 minutes before the game, he's got a little speech and it just reminds everyone, hey, right, we're in good hands. We've got Sunil here. He knows what he's doing. We'll follow you. We'll follow your lead, sort of thing. But in this team at BFC, we have a tremendous amount of leadership in the dressing room anyway. But
we suffered a defeat against Delhi yesterday, and since you have qualified, we have another 2 games against Goa and Jamshedpur. Will BFC be playing their main players, or will they give chances to young talent coming through the ranks and give them a sort of an experience in this, so they also are ready for the future?
It's really difficult as a coach to have an ISL season and be so dominant, and to continue that that way, and get to the point where you've got 4 or 5 games and you already know you're qualified. I think Carlos has tried to be really fair and to give everyone an opportunity that he thinks deserves one, not stupidly and say, let's change the whole team and put 11 new players in. He hasn't done that. I think looking back on what he's done, maybe he'll think differently next time, because maybe it's better just to put a full 11 in and let them have 1 game and say, go and do what you want, have the game. If you win, lose or draw, it doesn't matter. Enjoy the game. Let's get back to our 11, because this season, and it's no disrespect to the players that we have a very good 11, 12, 13 maybe, but the squad hasn't been as strong as last year. Last year, if you were able to take me off, you had someone capable of coming in. If one arm got injured, you had another guy stepping in to be a defender. If Miku was out for 10 games or 8 games like he was this year, we had 3 strikers that would come in and do the job.
So you're like replacement.
Correct. This year, and that comes down to the recruitment of the squad and retaining players. There was a few mistakes that were made, and I don't think it was solely the coach's fault. I think the next 2 games were always penciled in as being the games where it's going to be like, right, let's get our momentum back. Let's get the 2 games with the strongest 11, and let's get ourselves in the final going like this. Because now everyone's down and thinking, oh, we've lost 2 games, we had a draw before, we've copped 7 goals in 3 games, something like that, and
it's changed.
yeah. So nothing changes the way that they want to operate. It's just about a little bit of focus, and I think you'll go back to basics the next game.
And where do we stand a chance to winning the ISL this year, according to you? With you out especially.
You know what? I think the way football works, and it's very mysterious sometimes, and
brutal as well.
It's very brutal. I mean, it could go. It can go either way. It could just literally, for us, keep going like that, and we don't make the final, and we crash out, and everyone goes, "What did you do that for? Why did you change players?" And Miku's injured, Erik's injured, whatever, and make excuses. or we can just, focus on what we have and what we've been through this year as a club. You forget we had an AFC Cup campaign in July, August, and that was a big learning curve. We were taught a lesson those 2 games, so we were coming into that with a poor frame of mind into the ISL, going, are we going to succeed? We're completely dominant, unbeaten in the first 11 matches.
Pretty well set up by the Gaffer.
Correct.
Miko also.
Yeah. I think when you have your strongest 11 on the pitch, we shouldn't fear anyone. Yeah. So right now, barring my injury, and I think Albert is suspended for the next game, if we can go back to the basic 11 or what we had, the same structure, same mentality.
So talking about mentality, when you go in, do you go in with the mindset to you're going to win this game, every game, or do you go in with a different mindset, maybe against Delhi Dynamos, for example, that you're going to sit back and defend and hit them on the counter, or do you just go in every game saying, we're going to win, I don't care who it is?
It's a personal question because everyone's different. Yeah. My mentality is never underestimate your opponent. They're the ones you end up losing. I go into every game, training session the same way, 100%, and give respect to your opponent and try and win the game and try and win your battle in your area. As simple as that. But I think a lot of players here, particularly in India, the mentality is not strong when they get a little bit of success. You see it all the time. Players that think they're doing well, and the next game, have an average performance because they're still thinking about what they did the week before. A good footballer would be one that just keeps plugging away, keeps performing. And I think, if we keep that mentality of being, but it doesn't just start from the game when you get there. It's the whole week. It's how you train. What's the intensity level like? Are you thinking about the game? Are you preparing for the game? Are you making sure that by the time you get there, you've watched all the video, you understand who you're up against? You have to be so prepared. And I think when you know you're qualified, subconsciously there's a little bit of relaxation with that, and little things that you don't do on the pitch end up costing you in the long run. Like, I don't have to chase for that. Someone else will do it. If I can control this ball, but I'll just head it away because it's easier. So some players get in that mindset of like taking the foot off, and it's not just like turning up with a mentality to say this is an easy game. No one does that. But I think
awareness in the present situation, what is happening, that is way more important than anything.
Situational awareness, and I think when BFC have performed the best is when things have been on the line. Like now, we've lost 2 on the trot. We don't want to go and lose 3 on the trot. I don't think we've ever done that before. So this game now turns into a bit of a mental game to say to the players, hey, let's not have this record. Let's go and win the game.
So, what is BFC to you?
Right now, it's just I'm not going to say everything because football's not everything in life, but certainly when you're away from it and you have to take a step back, you certainly feel as though it is everything. I love going into work every day. I love the people that I'm around. I enjoy getting up in the morning and going, which is a really nice thing to find in your life because not many times it happens where you want to go into work or you want to go to your job. Especially as a footballer, there's not many chances you get to be in a team that's a successful team. The chance of winning something and having good people around you as well. So how could you not be attracted to be wanting to be around that? So for me, BFC right now, I would like to make it my last stop in my career. I'd like to finish my career here, provided things keep going the same way they're going. And football never happens. So if I can play another 4 or 5 years here, I would absolutely love that. Provided the body holds up, I feel good now, barring the injury. But let's see.
How would you see developing the Indian football culture and everything over here? What according to you should the Indian people or the clubs over here do? And talking about Welt Academy is something that my company has just started, and our aim over here, we have Spanish coaches who are UEFA Pro, which is like the top line, and they provide coaching to a lot of people. Our aim is to reach the masses, and masses in the sense people who can't afford such high quality training yet have an opportunity now to come and experience this and learn. So we're trying to push the development of football and give them the highest quality of training. What, according to you, should be concentrated on? And since our collaboration, Welt and Erik Paartalu, directing football towards a new path, I could say, what do you feel about?
I think it's a step in the right direction because it's been tried and tested many times before in other places around the world. And I think what helps you guys here is that it's still very, very early days in terms of building academies in India. You can see clubs that are doing it in the ISL, I-League. They're trying to start with their academies and create a pathway into being a footballer. But what if you don't have the opportunity? What if you're a kid on the street that doesn't come from a family with a lot of money and can't afford to go to the Barcelona Academy 3 times a week for $1 lakh a month or whatever it is? So for me,
that's where you find talent as well.
I didn't want to say that, but you know, if you look at players in South America, in Brazil, the best players are the ones that are trying to get out of their situation. And it sounds terrible because it's almost like you're taking advantage of somebody, but you're also providing them a great opportunity. A player that is hungry and a family that is hungry for their kid to do well, provided they're a good enough player and they're talented and they're pointed in the right direction, will always go to the top. Compared to someone who is living in Whitefield and goes and plays in the Barcelona Academy, and it's all too easy for them straight away. I can tell you they're not going to make it. 100%.
That's what even I like. If they have the money to afford Barcelona or Arsenal, for example, they have the money to go abroad and train with the biggest clubs over there as well. But those are the people who don't really have, I mean, I'm sorry to say this, but the actual drive.
No, those academies are 100% a gimmick. I see it in Australia as well. I know many people that are involved with the Liverpool Academy or Manchester United Academy, and all they do is go into private schools and they'll take the kids on holiday clinics, and they'll get one ex-player to come out and say, "Oh, hey guys, I'm Ian Rush, and welcome to the Liverpool football," and everyone pays for that. So it's great if you're just trying to keep your kid occupied, but these types of academies like Velt and others and what you guys are doing, it's important to unearth these talents, because it's not only going to help the kid and the family, it's going to help Indian football in the future. Because if you overlook these guys, you're not going to have the best talent pool to get India a higher ranking.
That's the aim of it. We want to pick up players from here and give them an opportunity in the European countries or America or Australia. And they need to experience different kind of football, because when I was down there, I saw the culture of football is way different than over here. So most of them haven't even seen it. Most of them don't have an idea how they play. So giving them an opportunity, giving them a platform to go there and do something is also good for the country and themselves and for Indian football itself.
It's only going to be healthy for those who are less fortunate. Obviously you want to get as many quality footballers as you can, but people and kids develop at all different ages. You have to remember that. Even for myself, I developed when I was about 15, 16, even 17. I was still growing into my body. I was very gangly and slow, and so there's also that to consider. Just because a player is not good at 7 or 8 years old, maybe at 15 or 16 he'll become a really good footballer. I think what's important with Velt is to give opportunities to those who, like you said, are a little bit less fortunate, but also can provide that coaching that is top level, can provide a session plan, a weekly plan, an overall idea of what it takes to become a professional footballer. And then it's up to the kid. It's up to the kid to perform, it's up to the kid to push themselves, the family to keep pushing the kids. But if you don't provide the opportunity, they'll either end up on the streets or play cricket, or so you want to get as many of these guys as we can and girls to play at the top level.
The problem with India is the culture and the mindset, to be honest. People here believe that you got to study, become a doctor, become an engineer.
Yeah.
Sport comes second, and if it does come second, it's cricket first.
Yeah.
And now because of IPL, people are getting to know that there is money in sport, but football is after IPL.
Yeah.
Which is now slowly picking up traction and helping people understand. That's what we also want. When we speak to a lot of parents who come on board, we explain to them how there's a career path, how football also is an option for them. And they start believing, they know what we're doing and they trust in us. And now our centers are seeing more numbers build, which is...
That's
good.
great.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason why you can't send your kid to school and allow them to excel at both. Allow them to be a good footballer and have an education in high school. When it comes to 15, 16, you're going to know if your kid's going to be close or not close. So there's no excuse for that to say, I want to make my kid become an engineer or a doctor. And I understand it because the culture here is different. And I think the parents obviously want to push their kid to the best possible job that they can think of, more income for them, whatever. But there's no reason why you can't do both. There's no reason why you can't be training 4 or 5 days a week for 1 hour a day or 2 hours a day getting quality coaching and then come home and do your homework for 2 hours every day. There's no reason why you can't do that. And I think with academies like Velvet is only going to encourage that.
That's great. Coming to, there are a lot of young footballers who actually been sending me DMs or mailing me and asking me, if I want to become a professional footballer, what do I have to do? I mean, it's a really big topic to talk upon, but then if you could just give a few things that you had kept in mind and they could use it to direct them.
I get the same thing as well with kids, messaging me, and I try and help out when I can. And I think what the young kids need to remember, 2019 is different to 1995 when I was starting my young career at 5 or 6. So a lot's changed in that time. The kids have already got access to phones and being on Instagram, and even messaging me on Instagram is something new. So. This generation, I think it's like you need to be outside more, first and foremost. You can't be in your house playing video games. You can't be outside being on... So, I mean, it's very difficult. I know from my nieces and nephews back home, they are all trying to be athletes. Like, they're all very, very gifted at athletics or even football. But they find it difficult to stay off the social media and the devices and playing games and Fortnite and whatever. So just remember, kids, like, if you want to make a career in anything, you have to work harder than everyone else. You have to sacrifice a lot, if not everything. For me, it was about, how much harder could I work than the next guy. So if you're finishing training at 6:30 or 7:30 at night and you're not happy with that session, go outside and do more. Train again. If someone's giving you a day off, train again, because you're not going to make it in the top level these days without putting in more hours than the next person. So my advice is to work hard, and also when you have a hurdle, like an injury, a setback, a coach doesn't pick you, you get dropped from a team, don't give up, just keep going. And there's always another avenue you can take to be successful, or to go into another career, or if you want to be a footballer, there's always another team.
Great. Coming to Bangalore, how's Bangalore been to you?
Yeah, good. It's almost 2 years now. We've been in Bangalore almost, and
Do you like the weather? Do you like the food? Do you like the people?
Just everything. It's a great mix. I think we're very lucky here. A lot of my friends play around the ISL, and you know the isolation factor of some of the teams. A good friend of mine lives in Calcutta and live in a fantastic hotel. But they just have no life outside of football. It's just the hotel, training, eat, sleep, and it's very repetitive. And Bangalore, for me, has just been a fantastic experience. You have everything you want.
You said it's meant to be in one of your interviews.
Yeah, it feels like that because myself and my wife have made a home here. We rent an apartment in Indranagar where we're pretty active, going around and being out in cafes and restaurants and whatever. And she has a lot of good friends in the gym, and she's doing a pottery course. She wants to do yoga instructing. So there's a lot of things that's on offer for her to do as well. It's not just for me.
Yeah.
But for me, in terms of football and life, it's been a pretty good match.
Is football a common love between you guys? Does she have a say, or does she get involved in your career?
I think she's learned to love it. Watching the game last night, she was mostly on her phone, and I said, "Don't you want to watch the game?" And she said, "Well, you're not playing." So she's my number one support network. She will be at every game if she can. She watches every game. She's always there, and I think she's very good to bounce things off, and she'll tell me honestly if things are good or bad in a way that I can handle. If we've lost a game or we've not played well, if I get home and talk, she knows how to handle that with me. So we're a pretty good match.
It does affect you guys when you have a bad game, or how is it now since you've got injured?
This is the difficult moments now because there's a lot of waiting around, a lot of icing, a lot of sitting around. You can't be as active, you can't go out and do anything socially because you're not allowed to walk or do certain things. So she's good, she knows when to leave me alone and when I need my space and things like that. But
does it get to you now?
Now it does, yeah. Now I'm so lucky it's not the ACL and I'm out for a year. I would have gone nuts. I have to be thankful that it's possibly only 4 weeks, but you just go through that process every day of waking up knowing you can't go to training or be with the boys and kick a ball around, which is what you've done your whole life. And people forget that it's not just flicking a light switch on as well and saying I'm fit now, I'm back. You have to get to that level again, and it's not easy. It's not easy to reach that level and maintain. So I've been doing what I can in the gym and working hard cardio-wise without using my legs. Everything possible to give me a chance to play again this year.
You do feel like an injury, you feel very like you don't have something in your body. That's when you actually know you've lost something. So you can imagine if a person who doesn't have a leg or something like that, how hard it is for him, and when it comes to you, now you realize that aspect as well.
I mean, we're a very privileged bunch of people to play football because, like you just said there, you're worrying about a little tiny tear that size in your knee, and some people haven't got legs, some people haven't got a house, haven't got food, water. Unfortunately, in my career, if you don't focus on those small things and get everything right, then you don't have a career. It's finished. So you're very, very self-centered as a footballer, which is it's hard to turn on and off because it's always about you. It's about, if I want to go to bed early, it's like I'm going to bed early. No, you have to all go to bed early. I'm going to have to get up in the morning. Next door neighbour's having a party. No, you have to turn all the music off. You're very self-centered. So there's a lot of people in the world that are less fortunate, and you have to remember that.
One of I can say the most love that's shown towards you from the West Block Blues, you can say they have stood by you guys in thick and thin, and they're there every game. So how does it feel when you guys play and they're right behind you every time? What do you have to say to them?
That's the reason why we have been successful because, and I don't want to sound too cliche, but without fans, the football club is non-existent. So you understand when you're out there playing that you're playing not just for yourself and your teammates, but for them, because they're paying their money every week to come see you. They're spending a fortune making all those banners and getting all these things, and they're an amazing active bunch of fans. And I think we'd love to win the ISL this year just for them alone, because even when we have lost a couple of games now, they're still very supportive. They understand the process. I think they're very intelligent fans. They're not dumb football fans.
It's a new generation that already know how to play.
So they're not just like when I was playing in Scotland, it's like if you win the game, you're the best player, I'll buy you a beer, or I love you. If you lose a game, you're the worst thing I've ever seen, you're crap, I don't ever want to see you put the shirt on for my team again. So I think they're a bit more educated here, and they understand that, there's frustration at losing a game, but if they saw you in the street, they're not going to abuse you. They'll still be like, I'm so happy to see you, and please, next game, try and win. And you know that you feel the connection.
And they almost are like the 12th man on the pitch.
It happens 2 or 3 times this year. I don't know how many times last year, but going goals down or drawing a game, and the last 10 minutes the volume increases, and not just I think for us as players, like we kind of block that out because we have to and just do our job. But for the opposition, when they hear that, they kind of go into a shell and they drop deeper and deeper and deeper. And if they're in the lead or drawing, they know against us they have to sit in. So for us, it makes our job a lot easier because it kind of pushes them back, you know.
That's, I think, one of the biggest qualities that BFC have. And I asked a few BFC fans what would they want to ask you in particular, and I picked two. The first one is from Niranjan. He's a very active person in the West Block Blues. You would see him maybe when you're there. The first thing is, what is it with you and the cows?
It's something silly that I don't regret, but I kind of like after the first couple of weeks, I was putting things on Instagram with the cows, and I was just so amazed that they were going around the streets, and just fascinated by it more than anything else. And then I just thought, am I just being like every other foreigner here that's just like filming these cows and like sending it back home? And I thought about stop doing it now. It's becoming stupid. And then people were like messaging me on Instagram saying, no, keep doing it, and where's the cows today? We haven't seen the cows. And then it became a good luck charm. So even in my head, on the game day, if I didn't film a cow, I was like, we're going to lose today. We're going to film a cow. So it became a good luck charm. And
you call the cow Bluey, which is there.
Bluey.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him in a while. But we don't train there anymore. But there used to be one out the side of the BFS training ground in Ashok Nagar, and we just connection. It was just a connection straight away, and I'd love to be more actively involved in helping out with the cows, but I don't actually. I understand why they're walking around and things like that. I don't think other people care that much, and there's a lot more to it than what I understand. So it's probably not a good topic to get into. But I got all the love for the cows.
And he follows up the questions asking, what do you think about the chant for Erik?
That one.
It's very similar to Lukaku.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. So it always makes me laugh because it's obviously completely untrue, but it's a lot bigger than that. But I don't think my wife hears it that often. But if my parents came to the game, they would laugh as well. I think they already know. But it's a funny thing. Like, and they've actually got a few more chants this year. I think there's about 4 or 5 now for me. So I know that there's an attraction and there's an interaction with myself and the fans, and there's a love aspect, and that's why I'm so gutted right now that I'm not able to get out there, because it's the highlight of my week. As a footballer, you're very sheltered. You're going into that frame of mind of preparation and only me and focus on the game and think about that, and then when it comes to being on the game, it's like the whole world's open up in front of you, and these guys are going to help you feel good at the end of the game.
Which makes a lot of difference.
Second, Syed Isham, he said you had an excellent game against Kolkata just before the New Year. You got in fantastic clearances and a crucial interceptions. You scored a great header, which was the difference between the two. He asks, what was your mindset during the game?
It's strange because I've scored the winner against Kolkata twice now, and it's both been against John Johnson.
Like I said, you have a knack of getting in those places.
I don't know if it was a motivation thing because I was playing against Jono, or it was just a mindset of, at that particular game, that we didn't have Miku and someone needed to score a goal. And how are we going to score a goal? We didn't have a striker at that time. So for me, there's a lot of luck factor as well with me actually getting forward on the pitch in a normal circumstance. Set pieces is different. So at that point, I'd found myself, far enough up the pitch, and I knew what Keane Lewis was going to do with the ball. I knew he was going to cut and then just deliver. And because he'd already made eye contact with me and he saw me, and he must have known that Erik's going to make a run here. And again, all my goals are because someone else is making them for me. Good crosses, So he cut in and he just whipped a great ball in between John Johnson and BK. and I made a great run and just got on the end of it. And I knew as soon as that ball, you know when a ball is delivered that it's going to be a goal, because all you have to do is just.
But you can't take that away from you. Like, that was a really hard goal. Like,
It was.
It was redirected from here. Like,
It just, it was kind of like, again, as a footballer, the conditions of the ball, the water on the ball, it was enough to make contact there, and it will go in the far post. But that was a real highlight for me, because in that position you don't really get recognised that much, because you're kind of cleaning up after everybody else, and if someone makes a mistake, you've got to be there and making tackles and passes and easy passes and whatever. And when I score goals, I think people start to realise what I bring to the team.
Yeah.
So it's important I keep trying to score goals.
now, another thing, you're pretty vocal and you stand up for what you say. This is one last thing I'd like to also add in. There was a point where you said something on social media, and they said that you're an Australian and you don't have the right to speak here, but you said you pay the taxes and breathe the same air. What do you feel and what do you go through at that moment? Because we, as a football fan, we believe that you're one of us, but when people say all this, it does affect you in some way.
Yeah, it does affect me, because coming from Australia, we're a multicultural country, but I still think we're very backwards in a lot of things. There's a huge underlying racism within Australia that people don't accept, even from my family, just views that will always, put everybody into one basket, categorise them, I guess is the word. And for me, coming from a country like that and coming in and out every year and seeing, what I have seen, and then going back and being in Australia, I'm like, you guys have no idea what the world is like. I kind of feel that when I go back every time. So when I came to India, I'd already lived in 7, 8, 9 countries playing football, and I feel as though I've become more of a human being than an Australian person, and actually associating myself being Australian sometimes is not as proud as what I used to be, because there's a lot of things in Australia that I'm disappointed with, and I'm also associated straight away that I'm an Australian, so people view me as an Australian and therefore I must be the same as everyone else. So when I came to Bangalore, everyone is so supportive of me, and particularly when I speak up, people are even more supportive. So it's not like people are hammering me, but I get really offended when people say, shut your mouth, earn your money and go home, or shut your mouth, you don't have an opinion here, you're Australian, you're not Indian, please. I don't get myself involved with what's going on now, with obviously what's happened in Pulwama and all that type of thing. I'm not going to get involved with that.
Do you feel strongly about it?
I do feel strongly about it, but there's a time and place, and the things that I've commented on were things that affect me, I think, and that's what I can control. I don't know much about the religious divide up there. I don't know how, because everyone's got a different opinion. So if people are talking about things that affect me in terms of what can we do in Bangalore that's better, I think the online poll was like that, and I said all these things, and people kept trying to speak back to me, and I was like, well, I'll tell you why I've got an opinion, because I pay taxes here, I breathe the same air as you, I walk the same streets as you, I get in the same autos every day. I'm not this person that's up here and I think that I can look my nose down at everyone. No, I'm on the same level as everyone else, and I think maybe the people that were speaking with me associate me being at a higher class or a caste, as you guys have over here, or whatever you still do. For me, I'm just normal. I'll treat everyone with respect, and I'll talk to anyone, and I'll definitely try and stand up for things in Bangalore, because it's where I live now.
To see the Q&A, you got to go onto the YouTube channel called Welt Media and Sports, and you can see the rest of this Q&A that a lot of fans have asked, and I have prepared myself to ask Erik. So see you guys there. Okay.